Hey, what's going on, guys? Jordan the Wolf here, and back at it again with the second part of What If Krillin Got the Buff Form. Alright, so if anyone needs a recap or this is your first time seeing the video, I would highly recommend you go see the first part, but I will give you a brief recap. Krillin trained during the 5-year break between DB and dbz, and last time we left off, Raditz was defeated. However, Goku will still perish like in the original. Now, by saying that, there's also one more thing. Roshi and Krillin are far stronger than the original canon and are heading up to the lookout together with the rest of the Z crew. How will this pan out compared to the original? Well, you'll have to see. Cutting back to where we last left off, all the human Z fighters would make their way to the lookout, and all would be present with the addition of Roshi in compared to the original canon. Now, currently at the head of the pole right here would be Krillin sitting at 260 amongst them. However, when showing off the buff form on the lookout training, it would catch the eye of certain Z fighters up there, including Tien Shinhan, who was rather fascinated by the transformation and would wish to delve into it and actually try to practice it. Although he would try during the 1-year time, it would not be perfect as compared to Roshi or Krillin's. However, Tien Shinhan himself would start to develop the form himself. Though choosing not to use the overly bulky state, he would try to use a way to be a bit of a midway, as seen in the 23rd tournament when he fought against Roshi. As Roshi has shown off a midway point where he did bulk up, however, it wasn't the full bulk up. It was in a way a sweet middle ground where he still had a smaller frame, but still had enough bulk on himself to really make a difference. Also, in saying this, amongst the training with Kami and Popo as well, there is a few more things going on, as well as Krillin learning and picking up on another technique, the Mafuba. As he would have an entire year with Roshi upon the lookout, he would likely have learned it by now, considering that he's been spending the last 6 years spending with his master. As well, developing the Destructo Disc just like in canon. He would spar with Yamcha, Chatsu, Yajirobe, Tien, and Roshi, of course. They would all develop and become much stronger than they did in the original canon, and even starting to learn new techniques, such as Krillin and Roshi teaching the buff form out to the other Z fighters, and Krillin experimenting with this new technique, combining 2 of his prior techniques, experimenting with a combination of the Thundershock Surprise and the Kamehameha I will dub the Shocking Kamehameha. There would be a period of time during the training Krillin might have felt plateaued for a quick while. However, he did come up with a solution thanks to Kami and Roshi, who introduced a far more heavier shell and weighted clothing upon the bald monk to use far more effort through the training and to get far better gains than the original. I would say the shell would be roughly 200 pounds. In addition to wearing heavy set weighted clothing just like Son Goku that would weigh around 260 pounds. I know you guys are also interested in how Piccolo and Goku are going in their training. Well, to say the very least, they are far more motivated than the original due to Krillin making his presence known with his such great transformation. Now, Goku would be motivated and will still be working upon his Kaioken. However, for Piccolo, I felt like he might revisit an old form he hasn't touched up upon in quite a while. Gigantification form. The giant Namekian form. Now, there is drawbacks and there is catches to it. It does not increase the power level of the individual. However, it makes them far more durable, does not take away speed, and it does increase physical strength, as well making them quite massive. So I feel like he would benefit off learning from this. So during the 6 months of time where he drops Gohan off to fend for himself, not only would Piccolo try to refine his martial arts once more, he would try to also improve upon his prior form and try to lessen the strain it puts upon his body in order to compensate and use it. I think all this is actually fueled by Krillin, who decided to train himself more than the original. That he could be a contender to their power if given enough time. With a far more motivated Piccolo, especially training harder during his 6 months and then meeting upon Gohan, he would instill far more brutal training than the original canon, and thus excel compared to his canon self, pushing himself far upon his limits. As well, Goku would push himself beyond his limits, as he had not only a rival in Piccolo, but as well Krillin, who are pushing him to strive to go farther and farther beyond with his power. Now, here's time to go over power levels. Starting off with Yamcha, his power level in this scenario would be at 1850, Chatsu 860, Yajirobe 1180, Tien Shinhan 2300, Roshi 1800. The star of the scenario, Krillin at 2550, Piccolo at 4200, and Gohan 1,300, with Goku being at 8,500. 1 year would pass and the arrival of the Saiyans would occur as they land upon Earth into the city as they did in canon. The Z Fighters all would realize this as they all left Kami's lookout together as they headed out to a desert to lure them away. Once then, the Saiyans would touch down upon into the desert as well, following the massive gathering of powers upon this planet. Just like the canon situation, Goku would still be on his way being lathed. However, two powers would also be gone from the battlefield. Yajirobe, just like in canon, scurrying away, and Master Roshi, who would be waiting somewhere behind the rocks, with a rice cooker and a seal. The battle will initially start just like the canon, as Nappa planted the Cybermen to test them all out. However, there would be a difference, as Yamcha would actually be able to survive the explosion from the Cybermen this time, as opposed to falling. As per canon, Krillin would finish off the rest of the Cybermen. Then the Z Fighters would engage with the Saiyan Nappa, as Tien would actually prove better match as opposed to canon, as began to wail on him, though the power still was in Nappa's court. However, Chaozu would attempt to use telekinesis to hold Nappa back, as Tien retaliated, but to little avail. However, that is when Tien would actually use the bulk up technique he learned from Krillin and Hiroshi during the 1 year time, to jump his power to 2,900, begin the short and swing at him, as Krillin would also join in, as they both would solar flare at the same time, blinding the brute, giving Krillin time to bulk up as well, jumping him up to 4,080, as together they both wailed upon Nappa, and they would just manage to take out the Saiyan during the chaos. Through a combination of using the shocking Kamehameha and a Neo Tri-Beam for a short while, they would take out Nappa. However, now they'd have a much worse issue to deal with, Vegeta. However, Vegeta would have no interest in fighting any of these weaklings, so he would dub them. So he would offer them the 3 hours to wait for Kakarot, just like in canon. As the Earthlings regroup, they would all wonder and ponder how the heck are they going to be able to defeat him. While the Z Fighters are actually still alive, many of them were worse for wear, including Yamcha, who was leaning against a rock trying to keep himself conscious. However, as the 3 hours passed, it would be evident that Goku would not arrive on canon, so they would all have no choice but to take on Vegeta by themselves. As Piccolo, Tien, and Krillin stood up against the Saiyan Prince, two of the fighters bulking up as they all charged at him, engaging in melee combat as they tried to overpower the Prince, who would start to pick them off one by one, starting to slash and tear into them as he first blasts Tien through the chest, launching him forward. His vision would begin to go blurry. Tien would put his hands on his knees, clutching his chest for a moment, before delivering a last-second Kikoho. Kikoho! As he blasted into the Prince, who was barely even affected about it. Out of rage, Krillin and Piccolo would deliver a hard double strike into the Prince's chest, launching him off. However, at the loss of Tien, they would also lose track of one of their other members, Chaozu, who, like he did the Nappa in canon, would latch upon Vegeta's back and self-destruct, hoping to take him out. However, just like with the bulb Saiyan in canon, this would have no effect, the Prince merely dusting himself off and charging, before then taking out the limp Yamcha, ramming his fist directly through his chest. Thus fell another Sea Fighter. Krillin would cry out for his fallen comrade, saying, "Yamcha!" Tears running down his face, hope starting to look lost. Gohan would actually enrage, and far stronger than canon, would briefly charge at the Saiyan Prince, fighting at him, trying his best to overwhelm him. However, the Prince would kick him aside. He knew he was no match. Thankfully, Goku would arrive though, as he would arrive with the Senzu Beans and deliver them out, splitting them between Krillin, Gohan, and Piccolo, as he would then go off to face Vegeta just like in canon, a bit stronger than canon as well. Vegeta, of course, would become a great ape eventually, and now, Piccolo's time has come, as he grew into the great Namekian form, smashing his fist across Vegeta's face to let go of Goku. As he commenced to charge the Spirit Bomb, Piccolo would smash hard again and again against the Prince, trying to hold him off, giving Goku time. However, something would happen as Gohan would see the power ball Vegeta threw up, and began to grow rapidly, throwing himself into Vegeta as Goku evaded, holding a stance, wanting to stop Gohan, but needed time to charge the Spirit Bomb. As the Super Namek and the Great Ape Gohan smashed into Vegeta, though they held a 2-on-1 advantage, it would be proven quite clearly that Vegeta was stronger than the both of them, as he would soon strike down Piccolo, launching him into the ground, as Piccolo would revert back down to his base form. Gohan would also be wrangled and smashed to the ground. However, all during this commotion, a figure would appear as Vegeta's tail would be lopped off. Yajirobe had came to the scene, just like in canon, slicing it off and quickly running. Before Krillin bulked up and smashed hard into the weakened prince, the bloodied and tired monk would smash harder and harder upon the prince. In his eyes, he wanted to finish off the prince, but then he remembered the idea they all had, as Roshi would come out of his hiding spot carrying the rice cooker, giving time for Krillin to hold him off just a little bit longer, even launching off a Destructo Disc. However, he would miss, however it did graze Vegeta's arm badly. The prince would cry out. Goku was ready to launch the Spirit Bomb, and launched it, nailing Vegeta hard. However, just like in canon, after he falls onto the ground falling from the sky, he was alive, and Goku wished for him to leave. However, Roshi and Krillin together would pull their efforts together and form a massive Mafuba, sucking in the prince and sealing him into the rice cooker, successfully stopping the Saiyan. However, now the survivors looked upon each other. Goku, Roshi, Gohan, Krillin, Yajirobe, and surprisingly Piccolo would be there. However, they would end up in the hospital. They needed time to recover and would ponder what to do, especially with the issue of Chatsu, who was revived before with the Dragon Balls, along with the other two warriors who fell. However, just like in canon, Krillin would bring up the idea, as the Saiyans would bring up Namekian with Piccolo. He would give them the idea to explore for Namek. Q, Popo coming upon it, finding Kami's old ship, etc. The crew would go the same as in canon, as Goku would stay behind, with Piccolo also staying behind. And Roshi, however, would refuse to go to space. He had an important matter, was actually to hide the rice cooker to make sure that it would not surface back up. But for now, unbeknownst to the Z crew, he had buried it under the sands of his beach upon his island. And thus ends the second part of this What If. Well, guys, what do you guys think of this What If? I hope you guys liked it. Share, like, subscribe. Please help share it out, and hopefully I'll get a part 3 coming up sooner or later. And that's about it, really. Jordan the Wolf signing out. And peace, guys. Love y'all.